Hey everybody, welcome back to Projects and Parables, where we are in the midst of our Squaredrop camper build. We have our trailer prepped and ready to go. We have the base of our floor right side up and ready to be prepped for the middle pieces of the sandwich floor. So we'll put hardwood edging around here and then in the cross members, and then we will put insulation in between the gaps, and eventually then our floor will go on top of that. So we will be working on that in this video. Let me get my materials together and we'll get started. Thanks for joining us. Okay, first let me show you what I did when I had the floor turned upside down so I could do the undercoating. I slid under the trailer and I made marks where my cross beams were going to go and my edging was, so that I had an idea, and then I marked the holes that where the bolts are going to go, so you can see I marked those as well. Then when I flipped it over, I could see roughly where that was going to be and I didn't have to worry about that. I did go ahead and drill through those holes so that I'm ready to go, and that's where the bolts will go to secure the floor to the trailer. So that's all ready to go, and I just wanted to show you how I did that while I had that upside down. For the middle boards, I wanted a hardwood, so I chose a poplar. I'm using a 1x2 that will fit along here, so I'm going to have one 10-foot strip on either side, and then I'll measure for the cross members and we'll cut those in to fit. But what I did for these, just to start with, was I went ahead and measured and marked, and now I'm going to pre-drill the holes so that we don't get any splitting, and we can just screw those in easier. So that's what's going to be next, and then we'll glue those and clamp them down and screw them in the whole deal, and we'll keep going. So I centered in the middle of this board, and I went ahead and drilled at 8-inch intervals, so I'm going to have screws every 8 inches. What I forgot to mention was I'm going to need to go ahead and countersink those, so I'm going to drill a bigger hole so that those will go flush with the top of the board, and then we can put the top of the floor on those, and there won't be waves and bumps. So that's what's next. Oh, hey, I was just testing it out. Now that we've got the side pieces on, we are ready to measure and cut for the middle pieces. Then we'll go ahead and drill the holes. The one thing we will have to do with these, of course, is we will have to mark and measure for where the bolt holes are going to go to bolt this to the trailer, so we'll have to cross our fingers and hope we get our measurements right there. A couple notes I did want to make before I forget. I'm using 1¼ inch screws, and the other little trick I'm also doing is on the sides I'm marking where I put the screws, so that when I go back and look for places to screw the wall into, I won't screw where I already have screws. So just a little trick that I want to make sure to remind you of, and well, I guess we better get measuring and cutting on those middle pieces next. All right, well, I got the 1x2s on, screwed and glued and attached. And before we went to putting on the foam board insulation, I wanted to just show you what we did here with the bolts. Went ahead and drilled. I used a paddle bit and I drilled the holes for the bolts so that they would sit flush, and then used 3/8 inch carriage bolts, went all the way through the trailer, through into a lock washer and then a hex nut, and bolted those down. So that's what that looks like. As I was putting this together, I had a thought as I put this 2x4 on. It's nice and flush, but what would happen if about 6 inches in it was off maybe 1/16 of an inch? And I thought, well, no big deal. Well, then I went ahead and measured, and about 12 inches in it was off by 1/8 of an inch, and I thought, no big deal. Obviously you can see where that's going. Pretty soon it'd be so far off it wouldn't even be on the plywood anymore. And it's kind of a no-brainer. You don't do that. You want to remain flush and true. But that's kind of an image of mission drift. Everybody has a purpose, everybody has a mission, and if you get off by just a little bit, it seems like no big deal, but a little bit kind of skews you, and pretty soon you don't even remember what your mission, what your purpose was. And so I just was thinking, let's remain true to the measurements and the mission. Just a thought for the day. We'll keep going, and next we'll put in the cut and put in the insulation foam board. All right, well, I wanted to show you the finished floor. You saw that last segment we put on the 1/2 inch Baltic birch on top. It's the 5x5, so even now you can see the seam here. We'll take care of that at some point. The mattress is going to be over top of that, so there's not much we could do about that, but that'll be later. One thing I do know now is that this is going to be very sturdy, and it's probably overbuilt. In hindsight, I probably would have done not as thick layers of ply, but it is what it is now, and we're going to move on. I honestly don't know what's next. I'm waiting on a couple orders, so I don't know what's going to be next. But thanks for watching, and take care. We'll see you next time.